Abandoned Hollow. In the ghostly town of Abandoned Hollow, where the shadows of trees whispered secrets to the wind, a chilling event was about to unfold. It was a week after the full moon had risen, casting an eerie glow on the thatched roofs of the quaint villager homes. People spoke in hushed tones about the secrets hidden in the heart of the forest, a place dreaded by all for the restless spirits that haunted its depths. On that fateful evening, a congregation of elegantly dressed people, adorned with lavish bridal gifts, approached the decaying mansion of the notorious old patriarch, Mr. Dawson. Their laughter danced in the night air like the cries of banshees, drawing the attention of the villagers. Even in the face of fear, curiosity gnawed at their bones, compelling them to witness the spectacle. As the group neared the decaying threshold, Lily, the patriarch's wife, rushed out with a facade of joy, her eyes gleaming with hope. Beside her, Dawn, their daughter, felt her heart race like a trapped bird, caught between the joy of meeting her beloved and the despair that loomed over her. She had heard rumors of the suitor, the infamous Nathan, a wealthy scion whose charm was as intoxicating as the spirits that twisted the minds of the townsfolk. The townspeople gathered, their excitement tinged with dread, for they knew the reputation of the Chancellor family, powerful yet ruthless. Whispers of curses and spectral appearances clung to their name, making the atmosphere thick with apprehension. Though Lily was thrilled, she couldn't quite shake the feeling that something was off. Perhaps it was the way the wind howled, reminiscent of mournful voices, or the unsettling shadows that flickered beneath the trees like fingers reaching out in desperation. She brushed the feeling aside until the moment she spotted the gifts that the Chancellor family had brought, sparkling jewels, rare spices, and ornate silk fabrics, glittering against the darkness like the stars lost in an ink-filled sky. Such riches, she gasped, her eyes widening. Surely our fortunes are about to change. But in the pit of her stomach, she felt a cold twist, an inkling that riches could often attract malevolence, and she couldn't help but glance back towards the forest, where the wind howled louder. When Nathan approached, his presence sent shivers down Dawn's spine. His smile was charming, his eyes gleamed with intent, as they locked onto hers. She felt intoxicated by his gaze, but there was something behind those glimmering eyes, an unsettling darkness, like the depths of the forest obscured by mist. "Miss Dawn," he said smoothly, "I seek your hand in marriage. My father, the Chancellor, wishes for us to unite our families." The weight of his words settled heavily in the air. Lily's heart fluttered with delight at the prospect of marrying off her daughter to a man of such status, but she couldn't ignore the tangled web of foreboding that tightened around them. "It is indeed an honor," she stammered, forcing a smile. But the cold tendrils of fate had already begun to weave their dark tapestry. That night, in the eerie warmth of a torchlit banquet, laughter echoed in the air, an unnatural mirth that sent chills through the heart of the old mansion. As the celebration wore on, something shifted, a hushed whisper floated through the night, the spirit of the forest was restless. Not long after the festivities began, Kim, Nathan's sister, stepped out of the hall, her expression distant, lost in thought as the chilling wind tangled her hair. As she wandered towards the edge of the forest, she felt drawn to something, a presence lurking behind twisted trees, something dark and enticing. Suddenly, a scream shattered the night, a bone-chilling sound echoed from the mansion as the townsfolk rushed to see what had happened. They found Kim collapsed near the old well, her eyes wide with terror and disbelief. She had seen the figure, the ghost, an omen cloaked in shadows, hovering just beyond the edge of the wood. In the chaos that followed, strange occurrences haunted the mansion. Doors creaked open by themselves, shadows flickered in the corners of their eyes, and the air turned icy cold, even as fire blazed in the hearth. Whispers swirled through the halls like a haunting melody. Some claimed they had seen the ghostly figure of a woman in white, her sorrowful eyes filled with rage and despair, wandering the same path Kim had taken. As dawn broke, the townspeople gathered at the well, aghast at what they discovered. The well, once a source of life, now held the lifeless body of Lily, floating eerily, her expression frozen in a mask of horror. A murmur rippled through the crowd. A long-dormant curse had awakened, intent on reclaiming the very lives that had dared disturb its rest. Nathan, consumed by turmoil, began to question his every action. He had not anticipated the peril this engagement would bring upon his family. The wedding, once a symbol of union, had morphed into a wretched ordeal. Sinister shadows roamed the mansion, growing bolder, feeding off their fear and despair. Each night, as the moon rose high, residents reported sightings of the motherly spirit seeking vengeance. Days turned into nights as they planned for the ill-fated wedding, but with every passing moment, the tension escalated. Dawn struggled through the veil of her vehemence. She was not just a pawn in her family's desires. Her dreams grew into nightmares, where she found herself running through the forest, trying to escape the grasp of the ghostly figure, whose wails echoed through the trees. "You will pay for disturbing my slumber." As the struggles unfolded, a series of eerie events spiraled out of control. The Chancellor family's reputation was on the line, facing whispers of disfavor and ill fortune. Neighbors spoke of curses cast in the dead of night, warning them that their fate was entwined with the restless spirits of Abandoned Hollow. Finally, the wedding day dawned, a day that was meant for joy, transformed into a celebration of despair. As Dawn stood beside Nathan, the air thick with a sense of dread, she cast a fleeting look at the forest that had cultivated so many secrets. The stars hung low, filled with an unearthly illumination. In an unexpected twist, on the brink of the ceremony, a horrendous storm erupted. Thunder clapped overhead, and the sky unleashed its fury, as if nature itself opposed the union. The townsfolk stumbled, drenched and terrified, as the wind howled through the trees like the cries of the damned. In the midst of the chaos, the ghostly figure appeared, twisting and contorting, a motherly spirit shrouded in fury. "My child was wronged," she shrieked, the very foundations of the mansion trembled under her grief. "You shall not claim what is not yours." In that instant, the fabric of their reality began to unravel. The mansion's walls echoed with the cries of the long-lost souls seeking resolution. Guests, once jubilant, now fled in terror, and what had been a joyous union morphed into a night of horror. As darkness fell, Nathan found himself amidst twisted shadows, struggling against forces beyond comprehension. He had thought wealth and status would shield him, but the ghosts of the past clawed at his very existence, pulling him deeper into their despair. The storm quelled as quickly as it had started, leaving a dreadful silence that blanketed the village. When morning light broke, the mansion stood stark against the backdrop of destruction. Cracks ran deep within the wood as if the house itself had swallowed the terror. As the struggles unfolded, a series of eerie events spiraled out of control. The Chancellor family's reputation was on the line, facing whispers of disfavor and ill fortune. Neighbors spoke of curses cast in the dead of night, warning them that their fate was entwined with the restless spirits of Abandoned Hollow. Finally, the wedding day dawned, a day that was meant for joy, transformed into a celebration of despair. As Dawn stood beside Nathan, the air thick with a sense of dread, she cast a fleeting look at the forest that had cultivated so many secrets. The stars hung low, filled with an unearthly illumination. In an unexpected twist, on the brink of the ceremony, a horrendous storm erupted. Thunder clapped overhead, and the sky unleashed its fury, as if nature itself opposed the union. The townsfolk stumbled, drenched and terrified, as the wind howled through the trees like the cries of the damned. In the midst of the chaos, the ghostly figure appeared, twisting and contorting, a motherly spirit shrouded in fury. "My child was wronged," she shrieked, the very foundations of the mansion trembled under her grief. "You shall not claim what is not yours." In that instant, the fabric of their reality began to unravel. The mansion's walls echoed with the cries of the long-lost souls seeking resolution. Guests, once jubilant, now fled in terror, and what had been a joyous union morphed into a night of horror. As darkness fell, Nathan found himself amidst twisted shadows, struggling against forces beyond comprehension. He had thought wealth and status would shield him, but the ghosts of the past clawed at his very existence, pulling him deeper into their despair. The storm quelled as quickly as it had started, leaving a dreadful silence that blanketed the village. When morning light broke, the mansion stood stark against the backdrop of destruction. Cracks ran deep within the wood as if the house itself had swallowed the terror. Now, as the villagers carried news of the calamity, they warned that anyone who dared disturb the peace of the restless spirits would find themselves entwined in an eternal night. It was bleak, wrapped in mourning. Those who spoke of the Chancellor household would always remember the day when joy morphed into haunting silence, echoing through the halls of Abandoned Hollow forevermore. In the stillness that followed, whispers continued to weave through the village of Abandoned Hollow, where silhouettes flickered against the moonlight, hinting at a world beyond, a ghostly reminder that some ties to the living must never be severed. And in this realm, the past would forever haunt their every step, watching and waiting, drawing those who dared to forget their legacy deeper into the shadows of despair. As the villagers turned their backs to the haunted mansion, the forest watched silently, its trees bearing witness to the spectral struggles, forever entwined in the tale of love lost and revenge fulfilled. The melody of curses and spirits intertwined with every breath they took, ensuring that the legacy of the hauntings would echo through the ages. The Shadow of Black Hollow, an eerie tale. In the quaint town of Black Hollow, nestled deep within the hauntingly silent woods, whispers of the supernatural were as familiar as the cawing of the crows that circled overhead. Like most of the residents, Alex had never held a belief in the paranormal either. Growing up, his family had been free from any spectral visitor. Even after the tragic loss of his father 5 years prior, there were no ghostly encounters to mark the farewell. Cemeteries loomed in the shadows, ancient and weathered, yet Alex had never felt the prickling of fear that an apparition might emerge from the fog of night to haunt him. His escapades with friends typically led to laughter and shared stories, even as the sun dipped lower in the horizon and the streets blurred into shadows. It was a comfort to him, their carefree camaraderie. However, on one fateful eve, the tranquility of Black Hollow shattered into chaos. A nightmare awaited him, lurking only moments away. It was the last day of his senior year, where the promise of bright futures sparked joy among his group of friends, who wandered the dim alleys with certificates of completion clutched in their hands. The laughter rang through the streets until the thunderous roar of screeching tires pierced the air, echoing like the call of a harbinger of doom. Alex had been walking at the far end when the car swerved toward him with seemingly insatiable intent. Instead of impact, there was only a sudden halt followed by the force of him collapsing to the ground, the concrete biting into him with unforgiving edges. "I told you to focus on the road," his friend Emily shrieked, her voice a mix of panic and anger. A voice broke in, shaky but earnest. "I am so sorry." It belonged to an anxious stranger who stumbled from the car, inadvertently drawing the attention of his friends as they rushed to gather around Alex. "Let's get him to a hospital now," cried Michael, while the elderly gentleman who had been driving quickly suggested, "Hop in, I can take you all, just get in." As the group hurried to climb into the car, Emily lingered by the shaky young driver, a look of intrigue in her eyes despite the mishap. "Cold as ice," she muttered as she watched him with apprehension. A righteous spark of concern flickered within her as she boarded the vehicle. What kind of boy would take the wheel in such a reckless manner? Beneath the sterile lights of the hospital, as Alex began regaining consciousness, his mother's worried face came into focus. Tears glistened in her eyes as she clutched his hand, terrified at the thought of losing him. "Are you all right, darling?" she asked, the quiver in her voice making him realize the gravity of the situation. "I'm okay, Mom. Just a little dizzy," Alex replied, though panic clawed at him as reminders of the accident echoed in his mind. "What about the driver?" His mother's hand trembled as she pointed towards a window. Out there, he saw the boy, his gaze sticking to the pavement, a shadow of guilt residing in his features. Minutes passed before he entered the room. "Hey," he mumbled, averting his eyes. "Are you okay?" Alex asked, though a foreboding dread merged with his curiosity. "Yeah, I'll cover your hospital bills." It was an accident," he stammered, the weight of the incident hanging heavily in the air. As he introduced himself, Alex learned his name was Ryan, a name now ingrained in his memory. The boy's presence was unsettling yet captivating. "How are you feeling?" Ryan asked, trying to extract a semblance of normalcy from the surreal circumstances. "I'm fine, just shook up." "I'm Alex," he replied, putting on a brave face. "What do you do, Alex?" Ryan inquired. "I'm working a summer job." "You?" "I help at my uncle's auto repair shop." Ryan's voice trailed off, his anxiety palpable in the oppressive atmosphere. The conversation fluttered awkwardly, and Alex noticed that he felt a strange kinship with Ryan. But soon, the urge to answer a call of nature overtook him. "Can you help me to the restroom?" he asked hesitantly. "Sure," Ryan replied, moving closer with tentative grace. As they walked toward the restroom, uncertainty clouded the air. Alex entered and, finding the sterile environment oddly disconcerting, made his way to the sink. Distant, muffled sounds of hospital life barely registered. After washing his hands, he turned to find an old janitorial worker, whose face was obscured by a cap. "Excuse me, could you hold my fork?" Alex asked, but silence ensued. The man continued scrubbing with fervor, utterly unresponsive. Sir," he called again, his voice trembling. Without a word, the janitor reached out, yet Alex gasped in horror as the man's hand rotted before his eyes, palm shriveling, nails flaking away. A murderous scream escaped his lips, and he stumbled backward, knocking the floor stand. "Alex!" Ryan shouted, bursting through the door as panic surged through his veins, and he gripped Alex's arm, yanking him from the horror unfolding. As they darted back to the relative safety of the room, Alex's heart raced, the encounter replaying in his mind like a twisted film. "Did you see that?" Alex panted, disbelief coloring his words. "Get a hold of yourself. I didn't find you to lose you too," Ryan intensively urged, his eyes darting for a sign of the nightmare. In the moments that passed, the energy began to shift, and Alex felt the shadows growing longer in the dim hospital corridors, as if creatures of the night were converging upon him. A chill settled over him, the laughter and chatter of nurses seemed distant. "What was it, Alex?" Ryan probed, observing him keenly. "An old janitor, or..." The words choked in his throat as the specter of the decaying figure drifted back into his mind. Dread engendered a disquieting silence until Ryan broke in. "It's not safe here. We need to leave this place." The resignation in Alex's heart mixed with an instinctive fear prevented him from moving. For every moment spent locked away from the world, familiarity twisted into something unrecognizable, darkening the corners of his thoughts. Suspicion gripped his being as nurses whispered excitedly behind the curtains, sharing stories. Their hushed tones hung heavily in the wards. He could hear it, snippets laced with dread. "The ghost of Black Hollow returns to the Forsaken," one nurse remarked, her eyes ghostly, dull as she fiddled with her equipment. "He hides among the living, and they don't realize. But there are no souls." "It's just legend," her companion protested earnestly, yet the urgency in their voices conjured images of the supernatural. "Do you really think we're safe here?" Ryan's face lay shrouded in worry. But the shadows warped tighter around Alex, whispers of the specter lingering still. Was it possible that the town he loved held secrets far darker than he could understand? "Let's get out. There has to be another way," Alex urged, adrenaline pulsing through him as he followed Ryan's doubtful lead. They ventured forward, navigating the labyrinth of hallways. Each flicker of light cast ghastly shapes along the walls, instigating panic-laden breaths. Their hurried steps echoed the rhythm of a hunt, as if something chased behind them through the darkened hospital. Stopping for a moment, they paused in the waiting area where ghostly silhouettes danced in the sterile air. "Stay behind me," Ryan urged, pushing through a double door, leading them down winding steps that led to the sublevel of the facility. The air grew dense, heavy like a weight pressing upon their chests. A sinister chill settled in their bones. "I think I heard something," Alex whispered, every sound magnified. The echo was foreboding, cascading like water against stone. Suddenly, shadows twisted within the corners of his vision, and a cacophony of laughter would erupt from nowhere, reverberating throughout the darkness. It felt as though Black Hollow itself was alive, fuming and breathing. "Run!" Ryan instructed fervently, his eyes wide with fear as they dashed down the sterile, uncanny hallways, the shadows reaching like clawing hands yearning for escape. Around a forgotten bend lay a door marked, "No Access." Unthinking, they burst through, hoping it would lead them back to light, yet the world warped into something grotesque, a forgotten storeroom layered with the dust of years long gone. As they stumbled upon a collection of remnants, medical supplies and equipment long abandoned, an overwhelming dread washed over them. A morbid aura settled in. They could feel eyes watching them from all around, unseen yet palpable. "Check this out," Ryan whispered, his voice low. Their curiosity urged them to delve deeper, unearthing from darkness revelations of horrific pasts, thick vines of secrets catching the light with husky shadows. Tragedy mirrors tragedy, they never leave this place. The abandoned artifacts whispered in the dimness, the walls leaning in closer, urging forth suppressed memories of lost souls hanging eternally in limbo. Do you think it's true? That black hollow houses souls? Alex questioned, dread clawing at him, pulling him back to the nightmares that played in his head. No, it can't be. It has to be some sort of joke, Ryan said weakly. Yet there it was, the remnants of agony and fear firmly etched in the tilting, decaying walls, the past clawing its way to the present. With every passing minute, the surreal became more vivid, terror reeling its adze in desperate need. Alex felt nausea rise, tangible fear gnawing at his insides. We have to get out, now! He screamed. Racing back through the door, they scoured the way they had come. It was through shadows and whispers that they darted, as the apparitions of countless victims sank beneath the surface, cries echoing and drawing them back into trembling arms. Hold on! Ryan yelled, draping an arm around Alex's shoulders. Their speed was palpable as their essence slipped away with each heartbeat, the darkness closing in with terrifying determination. As they tumbled through light, an unseen force pushed at their backs, shapes writhing like serpents in a desolate abyss. There! The exit beckoned like a lighthouse in a stormy sea. A gust of chilled air pulled them forward, as if the shadows themselves were urging their escape. They burst through the doors, gasping for breath, but the atmosphere of Black Hollow had stitched itself tightly around them, whispers, screams, and shadows leaping forth with ferocity. The town felt different as they bolted into the night, the weight of history pressing down like chains upon their hearts. Would they ever leave its unseen fingers behind? As their silhouettes danced behind them, fading away into the fog, Alex and Ryan realized they were tethered by shared traumas. Within Black Hollow, a haunted legacy flourished, entwined in their very existence. But would it consume them before dawn offered salvation? Or would they, too, become a part of the night's whisper, a lesson forgotten by the very spirits that guided the whispering winds? Do you really believe in ghosts? Ryan whispered as they fell into the embrace of the night, where history and horror merged, an eternal game waiting to unfurl. As they vanished into the fog-laden darkness, the town of Black Hollow remained alive, intertwined with their fate, its eerie whispers settling in the early morning mist. Their tale became one more haunting cry echoing through time, forever lingering within its grasp, an indelible mark of a legacy hidden in plain sight. The Cursed Shadows of Blackwood Manor. In the heart of a desolate state known as Eldermore, a young man named Theo found himself standing before an old, creaking two-story house. As he placed his two heavy suitcases on the frostbitten porch, disbelief washed over him. He had finally arrived at his new home. The door swung open, revealing his aunt, who ushered him inside with an unsettling eagerness. "Come in, dear. Don't linger out there," she beckoned, her voice a mix of warmth and something more sinister. With a forced smile, Theo dragged his suitcases across the threshold, his heart heavy with thoughts of the family left behind in distant Lantau. The unsettling stillness of the house encased him, amplifying his feelings of isolation. His younger brother, Leo, followed behind, fumbling with a couple of soda cans he had grabbed hastily from the car. As they settled in, Theo observed the home's eerie architecture, complete with dark wooden beams and unsettling, shadowed corners. His aunt had been living in America alone for years, recently inheriting this mysterious old estate. She'd arranged for her two nephews to join her while promising that their parents would follow soon. After unpacking, Theo decided to explore their new surroundings. Wandering into the dim basement, he found a couple of dusty bedrooms and a shared bathroom, the air thick with memories long forgotten. Ascending to the second floor, he stepped out into the cloistered garden. Here, amidst the chilling wind, he noticed a peculiar sight. Lush green grass stretched across part of the yard, while a corner remained barren, dominated by a withered, gnarled tree, its skeletal branches reaching out like accusing fingers. "Look at that!" Leo exclaimed, breaking the silence as he handed Theo a soda. "What's with that creepy tree?" "I have no idea," Theo replied, feeling an inexplicable shiver run down his spine. "Maybe it's just old." They both stared at the tree momentarily, unaware of the soft rustling coming from its direction. Suddenly, a branch snapped, crashing to the ground, sending both boys jumping backward. Time slipped by slowly, at least 6 haunting months. The brothers settled into their dreary new lives in Eldermore, which seemed to flow monotonously. School during the day, work afterward, then restless nights filled with thoughts of home. They found solace in the few friendships they formed but soon became disillusioned by the mundane routine. That is until strange occurrences started to invade their lives. One fateful night, only Theo remained at Blackwood Manor. His aunt was out, likely enjoying midnight adventures with friends, while Leo had ventured off to a neighbor's house, leaving Theo alone. Bored and restless, Theo sank into the comfort of the couch, laptop resting in his lap. The outside world became obscured by swirling snowflakes illuminated by streetlights. Theo leaned back, the heavy music from his expensive headphones creating a sound bubble around him. He focused entirely on his laptop screen, attempting to distract himself from the unsettling thoughts that plagued him. A chilling breeze suddenly wafted through the room, causing his skin to prickle. A sense of dread seeped in, something was off, and deep inside, Theo could feel it. Dropping the rhythm of his head banging, he hesitated, pulling the headphones off. The house was silent, truly silent. A knot of anxiety began to swell within him, a feeling he had never experienced before. He glanced around the room, ensuring he was indeed alone, convincing himself that everything was fine. But moments turned into hours, and the silence grew heavier, suffocating him. His heart raced eerily as paranoia seeped deeper into his very being. Each creak of the house made him jump, and he found himself glancing back at the window intermittently, half expecting to see something through the glass. Suddenly, his laptop screen flickered, an odd reflection caught his eye. It looked like the window behind him. He turned slowly, half expecting to see nothing but empty darkness, but when he did, he froze in place. A shadowy figure, indistinct and pale, loomed just outside the glass, watching him, observing. Panic surged through him like venom. The figure stood unnaturally still, seemingly waiting for something. Theo's breath hitched, and he quickly turned back toward his screen, its reflection now empty. "Just my imagination," he chuckled nervously to himself. Yet, when he glanced back, the figure was gone, leaving a chill down his spine that lingered like an unwelcome guest. Shaking off the unease, Theo anticipated the arrival of his aunt, and the murderously slow passage of time that paired with his mounting dread. As he prepared to dismiss the events of the evening, the lights flickered violently, plunging him into darkness. Fear twisted in his gut. "Please, just let this night end," he muttered, forcing himself to stay seated. Suddenly, a soft tapping sound drew his attention, the kind of quiet sound that could be ignored but sent ripples of dread through his heart. He instinctively stood, creeping toward the window where the soft thud seemed to originate. His trembling fingers grasped the curtain, slowly peeling it back. The night outside seemed more ominous than before, black trees swaying like tortured souls and shadows dancing unnaturally. But what truly horrified him was the realization that the tapping was coming from inside the house. A faint, ghostly whisper echoed through the cramped rooms, calling his name. Tishio. It resonated through the eerie silence, swirling around him like an icy wind. Theo nearly stumbled back in disbelief, heart pounding. The voice was fractured, echoing with a sorrowful longing. He spun around, expecting to see Leo or perhaps his aunt playing a trick, but only the stillness responded. Leo, he called, but there was no answer. Instead, the whisper returned, louder, more insistent. Tishio, come, play with me. Panic licked at his insides. He raced down the hall, only to find the door to the basement ajar, swaying slightly as if beckoning him. The moment he approached, a gust of frigid air sent him staggering back. He turned to flee when the door creaked wider, its dark maw inviting him to step inside. Tishio, don't be afraid. The voice slithered through the still night, chilling him to the bone. Every sense in him screamed to run, to escape this malevolent presence, but an inexplicable force drew him in. Taking a deep breath, he reached for the doorknob, his fingers trembling. The cold metal shocked him as he creaked the door open. What lay inside was unimaginable, a dimly lit basement stacked with forgotten relics and a thick haze of decay. But what caught his eye first was the wall, covered in symbols that twisted and writhed, recounting tales of sorrow and anguish. It felt like the air itself pulsed with a dreadful energy. Come play, the voice urged again, softer now, more desperate. Summoning the last of his courage, Theo descended the stairs. As he stepped into the basement's bowels, the heavy door slammed shut behind him with a deafening thud. Darkness swallowed him whole. At that moment, the shadows surged forth, coiling around him like serpents. Theo's heart raced as he felt phantom hands tugging at him, urging him further into the abyss. Leave me alone, he screamed, but the walls echoed with laughter. Faint, childlike giggles resonated through the musty space. As he stumbled backward, the symbols flickered with ephemeral light, forming grotesque faces that rose up from the floor. They whispered secrets of the long-buried past, echoes of children trapped in the dark, lost but still longing for companionship. Then Theo saw them, glimmering figures emerging from the darkness, the spectral children, their eyes hollow, faces reminiscent of the life they once lived. They surrounded him, their ghostly forms ethereal yet sorrowful, each one beckoning him forward. Join us, Theo. Stay with us forever. His mind spun as he rushed back to the door, but it was no longer there, replaced by a void that swallowed his pleas for freedom. Theo's panicked breaths turned into sobs, despair overwhelming him as the figures surrounded him, each voice intertwining until they formed a haunting chorus of despair. Tishio, play with us. What felt like hours blurred into moments of confusion. The basement, filled with shadows of laughter and lingering dread, became his prison, a shimmering web woven from sorrow, inextricably drawing him into the lore of Blackwood Manor. As the sun rose over Eldermoor, the villagers whispered tales of the haunted house, the laughter of children lost within its confines, echoes of a soul searching for peace. And on the eve of every winter, they claimed, if one were to linger long enough, perhaps they'd hear the voice of Theo, still calling to those who dared to approach. Tishio, come play with me. Life outside continued, but within the walls of Blackwood Manor, the haunting lingered, an endless cycle of tethered spirits waiting for their next companion, their next playmate, within the chilling grip of Eldermoor's perpetual dusk. The Cursed Thicket of Eldermoor. Once upon a time, in the mist-laden village of Eldermoor, two figures emerged from the shadowy trees. Lyra, a timid soul burdened by a dark marriage to a brutish man named Rorik the Thief, found herself caught in the chilling grip of a night that promised horrors yet unseen. The moon hung like a ghostly eye in the pitch-black sky as ominous clouds gathered, muting the world below. Rorik, notorious for his greed and brutality, had an insatiable hunger for what didn't belong to him. His latest obsession, an enormous bull belonging to the wealthiest villager, had brought a curse upon them. Lyra's heart raced each time she heard Rorik's contemptuous growl echoing in their rickety shack. The way he spoke about the bull with sinister pride made her skin crawl. "What do they know of true strength?" he would sneer, stirring up terror with each word. That night, as a blustery wind rattled against the wooden walls, Rorik's eyes gleamed with a cruel light. "We're going to claim that bull, Lyra. No one will stop us." "No, Rorik," she pleaded, her voice trembling like a flickering candle flame. "It's too dangerous. The spirits of Eldermoor won't take kindly to such treachery." "Spirits?" He exploded with laughter, clutching his belly as if the very idea was absurd. "The dead can rest easy. I will build my empire with bones and blood." Within Lyra, dread pooled deeper. She recalled the stories woven through tales of old, the restless souls of those wronged, lurking among the fog while seeking retribution. But it was too late. Rorik was set to act. As night cloaked the world in darkness, Lyra, against all instincts, trailed after him, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she should warn the villagers, but terror had silenced her. In the distance, the thunder of hooves began to resonate through the vale, a herd of ghostly cattle driven mad by betrayal. They arrived at the barn, the air thick with foreboding. As Rorik began his preparations, he failed to notice a pair of glowing eyes staring back from the shadows, the ghost of Eldermoor's vengeance personified. "Rorik." Lyra stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "Something isn't right." "Silence, woman. I'll not have you spouting nonsense at a time like this." He shoved her aside, bitterness lingering in his bones. The rage within him ignited as he peeled away the thick door to the pen. Suddenly, as if the veil between worlds had been torn, a bone-chilling wail erupted from the barn, the sound of the wronged spirits echoing through the air, a mournful cry seeking justice. Shadows cascaded from the corner of the barn, twisting into grotesque shapes, their features warped by fury. Terrified, Lyra watched as the spectral cattle charged through the barn, driven by supernatural energy. Their eyes blazed like fire-lit coals as they trampled everything in their path. In that chaotic moment, Rorik found himself ensnared within the grips of the beastly phantoms. He was knocked off his feet, his face ashen with terror. As the spirits danced around him, their whispers turned to screams, echoing the sins of greed. "A thief shall know no peace," they chanted, their spectral forms pulling Rorik into their spectral lament. Lyra grasped that this was not merely an act of vengeance but a chance for atonement. Her fear swirled with anger as she yelled, "You shall not take him. He is my husband, my choice." The gales roared as she confronted the spirits, a surge of defiance coursing through her. Channeling her own sorrow, she stepped forward, forcing her will against the ghastly hints of former villagers. If he must pay, let him pay by redemption. The spirits paused, hovering in a cloud of uncertainty. Rorik, momentarily freed from his nightmare, shouted back at her, "Why would you choose to stand beside this beast?" Desperation filled the air as Lyra recalled her own darker days, how she too had felt crushed by the weight of despair. But confronted by her own ghosts of the past, she realized that true strength came from the choices we make. She would not allow herself to play the victim any longer. "Rorik," she implored, eyes glistening with determination. "This is your chance to change. Embrace the pain and fight through the darkness. Free us both from our shames." The ghostly herd circled back, a wall of ethereal limbs. Rorik's cowardly visage began to flicker under Lyra's plea, flickering like a candle at the mercy of a tempest. In that lingering moment, the power of redemption flickered between the two. Would Rorik rise from his ashes of avarice, or fall back into the abyss of his wicked ways? As if sensing his wavering resolve, the spirits grew more restless, ready to drag him down into oblivion. Yet, Lyra's spirit ignited with the essence of courage, casting aside her fears to bridge the chasm between them. A blood-curdling roar shattered the night. Rorik met her gaze, his eyes reflecting the turmoil of 1,000 regrets. "You think I can change?" "I know you can," she urged, stepping closer to the shimmering beings, their eyes softening for the first time. As if activated by the force of their connection, the spirits began to draw back, reluctantly withdrawing their claims over his soul. Amidst their retreat, they offered Rorik a choice, a chance to break the sins of his past and unify as a couple under the honest light of love. The darkness that had once consumed the savage man started to wane, and for the first time in his life, Rorik felt the weight of remorse and the possibility of resolution. In the haunting embrace of Eldermoor's restless spirits, Lyra took his hand, whispering words that echoed through the ancient trees. "Together, we can face the darkness, but only if you choose to walk into the dawn with me." The thunderous hoofbeats diminished into silence, and the last glow of the moon illuminated the woods, as Rorik, haunted by his past but determined for redemption, took a step forward, towards the light of a new dawn and the chance of a united future. The stage was set in Eldermoor, allowing hope to intertwine even within despair's deepest shadows. But whether Rorik would heed the wisdom of his beloved Lyra, forging a path free of vengeful spirits, remained a mystery yet to unfold. Already, the villagers whispered stories about the thicket, a haunting place where darkness and hope converged. But legends swirl silently in the wind, proving that dreams of redemption entwine even with our deepest fears, revealing that the greatest knots of the heart require courage to untangle. And the lessons of love and redemption echoed long after the moon sank, as the winds of Eldermoor would forever carry whispers of the night the spirits woke to reclaim their peace. Echoes of the Damned. In the desolate village of Eldritch Hollow, where the sun rarely broke through thick clouds and shadows lingered like uninvited guests, whispers of the supernatural permeated every crack and crevice of its cobbled streets. The village was enveloped by an ancient, gnarled oak tree known among the villagers as the Sentinel of Sorrows. This tree had witnessed countless generations, and with each season, it bore witness to the tragic tales of those who had dared to challenge its cursed roots. The village's elders often gathered around the flickering flames of a bonfire, sharing chilling tales of the ghostly figures said to inhabit the hollow. Each full moon brought with it a palpable tension, for it was then that the wailing spirit of a lost maiden, shrouded in white, would emerge from the depths of the mist. Villagers claimed her desolate sobbing echoed through the night, a haunting soliloquy of despair, capable of ensnaring even the strongest of souls. As the seventh full moon approached, fear tightened its grip on the hearts of the villagers. They warned one another to remain indoors, especially on the 12th hour, when the boundaries between this world and the next thinned. But among them was Derek, a brash young man known for his towering stature and insatiable curiosity. Dismissing the ghostly lore as nothing more than superstition, he gathered his two closest friends, Liam and Jackson, convincing them to confront the tales head-on. The night was eerily calm, a deceptive peace enveloping the village as they gathered supplies for a midnight rendezvous at the oak tree. A bottle of strong liquor nestled between them, they laughed at the stories of shadowy figures and anguished cries, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves that danced along with the wind. Ignoring the icy chill creeping through the air, they set out towards the dreaded oak, emboldened by youthful bravado. As the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere transformed. The air grew heavy, filled with an unnatural stillness, as if the world held its breath. Derek's laughter faltered, a shiver racing down his spine. The leaves above rustled violently, as if warning them of the darkness that awaited. "It's just the wind," he scoffed, raising his bottle in mock defiance. Little did they know, they were being watched. Suddenly, a mournful cry pierced the silence, a sound unlike anything they had ever heard. It rose from the depths of the forest, echoing in haunting harmony with the shadows. "It's just a trick of the mind," dismissed Jackson, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. Derek, fueled by recklessness, pressed on. "Let's see what's truly out here." As they made their way towards the massive oak, the silhouette of a figure emerged from the mist, a young woman clothed in white, her long hair cascading like waterfall over her shoulders. Her face was obscured by the dark shadows around them, yet her eyes glinted eerily with a haunting familiarity, drawing Derek closer with each step. "Come play with me," she whispered, her voice a chilling lull that curled around their hearts like a serpent. Under her ethereal gaze, Derek felt a strange sensation, an unshakable compulsion to surrender himself to her. He turned to his friends for reassurance, but Liam and Jackson stood frozen in terror, eyes wide with horror. As Derek approached the apparition, the ghostly girl's face twisted, revealing a ghastly visage with hollow eyes bleeding dark, viscous tears. "Join me," she beckoned, her voice dripping with malice. Liam shouted, "Derek, don't," but it was too late. Shadows erupted from the ground, oozing darkness that coiled around Jackson and Liam, anchoring them to the earth. Derek turned to run, panic flooding his veins, but the apparition extended a long, skeletal hand, grasping his arm with an iron grip. Suddenly, the other shadows surfaced, twisted figures of anguished souls, forever bound to the oak tree, their bodies mirroring the pain they felt in life. They swirled around Derek and his friends, their whispers melding into a cacophony of despair. "Flee while you can," they wailed, "we are forever trapped, you shall join us." Derek's heart raced as he fought against the sinister grip pulling him closer to the girl. He screeched, "Let go of me." But his words fell silent, swallowed by the void of their haunting wails. He turned to see Liam and Jackson, their faces etched with horror, locked in battle against the encroaching shadows. The dark figures sank their hands into their bodies, siphoning their life force as they writhed in agony. With a surge of instinctual fear, Derek tore himself free, lunging back toward the path leading home. He stumbled away, desperate to escape the torment echoing behind him. But the ghostly sounds grew louder, an echoing warning. "The darkness cannot be escaped, you belong to us now," they chanted, their lament blurring the lines of his sanity. In a frenzy, Derek ran until the woods unfurled into a clearing, and the first light of dawn broke through the trees. He collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath as the sun's rays kissed his skin, dispelling the dark hues of the night. The echoes of the forest faded, replaced by the harmonious chirping of birds, yet the hollowness in his chest remained. As villagers began their morning routines, Derek emerged from the woods, his face pale and haunted. He frantically relayed his story, but they merely shook their heads, dismissing him as an intoxicated fool. "The woods are no place for the brave, and your recklessness has led you to madness," they whispered, turning their backs to him. Days turned into weeks, yet the memories of that fateful night haunted Derek relentlessly. Whispers of the dark shadows seemed to follow him through the streets, haunting him even in daylight. He often found himself staring at the oak tree, the shadows writhing at its base, each day compelled to venture nearer, unable to resist the pull of the girl in white. One evening, fueled by desperation and a determination to end his torment, Derek returned to the oak tree, armed with candles and offerings, anything to appease the wraith who had ensnared his mind. He felt drawn to her, his heart thrumming with both dread and a flicker of hope that he could sever this cursed tie. As he kneeled, trembling before the ancient oak, darkness slithered around him like smoke, and the girl appeared once more. "You've come to play, Derek," she whispered, a twisted smile gracing her lips. The shadows bore down upon him, and for the first time, he could see their true forms, twisted remnants of the damned souls that had once walked the earth, their flesh rotting, faces twisted in eternal pain. Among them, he glimpsed Jackson and Liam, their eyes wide with terror, their mouths forming silent screams as they reached for him. Dread pooled in his stomach as the girl laughed, a sound laced with malice. "Every soul here has a story, a reason for their suffering. They craved immortality, yet none have been granted such a gift. Only despair awaits, and now you shall know it too." As she lunged for him, darkness enveloped Derek, dragging him into the abyss of souls. Panic shot through him. He was not just an observer but a participant in their eternal plight. The wailing chorus became deafening, filling his ears with despair and echoing his own cries for freedom that rang hollow against the void. Days blurred into weeks as Derek endured the horror of his captivity, trapped in a nightmarish realm of unending cries and spectral shadows. He witnessed the torment of ghostly figures who had dared approach the oak before him, their life drained as they begged for salvation that never came. Then came the night of the blood moon, a fateful convergence of darkness. The spirits grew restless, a frantic energy whispering through the air. No longer were they content to remain trapped, their despair morphed into rage. "Lend us your strength," they shrieked in unison, their voices a twisted melody. "Wield your spirit as ours. Together, we will break the chains of darkness." Fueled by desperation, they drew Derek closer to the void, binding him within their cycle of torment. As the blood moon rose high in the sky, Derek felt a surge of energy coursing through him. He was a vessel of rage, a conduit for the spirit's vengeance, unleashing their wails upon Eldridge Hollow. The ground trembled beneath the oak tree, fissures forming, and shadows spilled out like ink. The villagers awoke to the earth shaking, fear gripping their hearts. They stumbled from their homes, witnessing the swirling shadows and the ravenous spirits forcing their way into the realm of the living. Cries of horror rang out as the townsfolk fell prey to the fury of the damned, becoming ensnared by the very tales they had dismissed. Derek's laughter mingled with the tormented cries around him. He had become one with the shadows, one with the dark, the very thing he had sought to confront. The ghostly girl in white extended her hand, welcoming him as he joined the thrumming heart of a new generation of darkness. In the aftermath, Eldridge Hollow was transformed into a realm of perpetual night, a cursed town plagued by whispers of the damned. The trees wept blackened sap, and the oak's twisted branches reached out, caressing the souls who wandered too near. Few dared to tread its grounds, lest they become ensnared in the eternal chaos that had consumed them. Years passed, and the story of Eldridge Hollow faded into legend, yet the cries of the lost echoed through the misty nights. They whispered through the leaves and lingered in the air, warning travelers against the allure of the oak tree, a dark and treacherous sentinel that only craved the despair of those who sought to play. The shadows of Derek, Liam, and Jackson entwined with the echoes of countless souls, forever trapped in the cycle of torment that fractures the line between reality and nightmare. The village lay silent, a mere husk of what it once was, while the sinister heart of the woods pulsed with the energy of the damned, waiting for the next inquisitive soul to approach, inviting them to join the lament of the lost, a chilling reminder that some stories should remain untold, lest they awaken the darkness that lies beneath. The Whispering Shadows of Eldermore. In the eerie town of Eldermore, nestled deep within a foreboding forest, tales of the supernatural echoed through the ages. The air was charged with an unsettling chill, and every shadow seemed to pulse with an ominous life of its own. It was said that Eldermore was once a flourishing town, but following an age-old curse, it fell into despair, becoming a ghost town haunted by the sins of its past. Thomas Gray, a weary and disheartened civil servant, was dispatched to Eldermore to oversee a project aimed at reviving its desolate streets. Unlike his previous assignments, this one filled him with dread. Eldermore was notorious for its haunted reputation, famous for its spectral apparitions and the sinister disappearances of countless souls over the years. However, duty called, and Thomas found himself driving deeper into the heart of darkness. On the eve of his official assignment, Thomas arrived a day early to familiarize himself with the forsaken town. He maneuvered his vehicle through twisted, overgrown paths, feeling a growing sense of apprehension as he passed dilapidated houses and shuttered windows, each seemingly hiding secrets of their own. It was then, shrouded in mist, that he stumbled upon an ancient chapel, its weathered stones cloaked in ivy. With desperation gnawing at him, Thomas approached the chapel, hoping its solitude would offer protection from the looming darkness that seemed to seep into his very bones. He beseeched the elderly caretaker, Father Alden, a solemn man cloaked in shadows as ancient as the stones themselves, to allow him refuge. With a nod that felt more like a judgment than an acceptance, Alden granted him sanctuary. The chapel was a sanctuary of sorts, though its vastness felt oppressive. It lay secluded, surrounded by gnarled trees that whispered old secrets to the wind. By day, it was lifeless, echoing only with the distant rustling of branches. By night, however, it transformed into something far more sinister. At twilight, the pale lights flickered ominously, as if urging Thomas to turn back. Thomas shared his meals with Father Alden, who would often fall into a trance-like state while recounting chilling legends of the land. Each tale felt more haunting than the last, weaving the rich tapestry of Eldermore's history with ghostly threads. They spoke of spirits tethered to the graveyard behind the chapel, restless souls that wandered the woods in search of vengeance for the wrongs committed against them. In the absence of the old priest, Thomas found himself cloistered in solitude. The nights grew intolerable, steeped in echoes of torment as he wrestled with memories of happiness long erased. Whispers from the forest beckoned invitingly, yet warned him to remain within the confines of the chapel. One particular night, following a thunderstorm that raged like the fury of the damned, Thomas ventured outside, drawn inexplicably by the whispering woods. As he walked, he felt a cold, clammy hand grip his shoulder. Twisting around, he beheld a young girl, her eyes hollow, her face pale as moonlight. "They cannot rest," she murmured, her voice barely a breath above the wind. "The pact must be fulfilled." The girl dissolved into shadows, leaving Thomas trembling. He returned to the chapel, heart racing, but sleep evaded him. Desperate for clarity, he sought Father Alden's counsel the next day, but the caretaker was unavailable, gone, the locals claimed, on a pilgrimage. Days turned into weeks, and Thomas became increasingly enveloped by the strange happenings that surrounded Elder Moore. He would hear whispers of names, desperately calling from the depths of the woods. He learned of the Elder Moore Coven, a group of outcasts who had practiced dark sorcery long ago, cursed to roam the town forever. It was said that on nights soaked in moonlight, their cries echoed through the forest, begging for redemption. One bitterly cold night, compelled by unseen forces, Thomas ventured to the graveyard with a storm brewing in the distance. The moon hung low, its luminescence illuminating the moss-covered gravestones. Each bore a name, a history intertwined with tragedy. As he knelt by a crumbling headstone marked Alara Sorensen, the ground beneath began to tremble, murmurs growing into a cacophony. Visions assailed him, the witch trials, unjustly accused souls, flames licking at their feet as they stood guilty in the face of malice. He saw shadows darting among the trees, heard cries of sorrow growing louder, each one sending icy fingers down his spine. Entranced, he called out, asking to hear their stories, their truths. With each word, he felt a presence encircle him, ghosts forming around him like mist rising from the grave. The apparitions began to materialize, faces twisted with pain and anguish. They implored him to break the curse, to lift the weight of their eternal suffering. The girl appeared again, pointing toward the chapel. It's there, in the bell tower. You must find it. With terror gripping him, Thomas raced back to the chapel as the wind howled like a beast. The door creaked open, revealing darkness inside. He ascended the narrow staircase, heart pounding, and arrived at the belfry, where a dusty, ancient relic lay, an intricate bell embellished with arcane symbols. It seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. As he reached to touch it, shadows surged forward. Ghostly forms twisted and cried out in desperation. "Ring it," they wailed. "Set us free." With hands shaking, Thomas struck the bell. The sound reverberated through Elder Moore, resonating with an anguished cry from the woods and echoing against the cliffs. The bell began to glow, illuminating the darkness as it reverberated with the weight of 1,000 lost souls. Before his eyes, the spectral figures began to dissolve, tears of gratitude mingling with the air. With each toll, their anguished faces shifted, replaced with serene expressions. They locked eyes with Thomas, their appreciation weaving itself into the fabric of peace, lifting the heavy fog that engulfed Elder Moore. But just as the last bell tolled, an ear-splitting crack split the night. The ground beneath trembled violently, nature retaliated against the release of the spirits. Thomas staggered back, realizing that while he had liberated the souls, Elder Moore was not ready to let him go. Roots burst forth, latching onto him, dragging him into the depths of the earth's embrace. The townspeople reported that a violent storm ravaged Elder Moore that night, and when the dawn broke, the chapel stood as it always had, save for the absence of Father Alden. Thomas was nowhere to be found, yet on particularly quiet nights, when the wind howled and shadows danced under the moon, whispers echoed through the air. Those who dared venture close would hear the sound of a bell tolling, reminding them that the shadows of Eldermore were not entirely at peace, and that a new wanderer walked among them, a guardian of the restless, caught forever between two worlds, forever part of the haunting lore of Eldermore. And so the cycle continued, as the ghostly figures bade their time, whispering their tales beneath the haunting moonlight, seeking solace, yet continuing to remind those who came near that Eldermore was an echo of the past, alive with mystery, waiting to reclaim any who dared to awaken the slumbering shadows once more. The fateful haunting. 12 a.m. at Timberwood. I'll conclude this vlog here. I hope you'll support me with a like, a share, and subscribe to my channel for more spooky videos to come. Lucas was sitting in his dimly lit room, reviewing the vlog he had uploaded the night before. He smiled to himself, mumbling, 10,000 likes already. As he read through the comments on his video, his phone suddenly buzzed, an incoming message from Clara, his girlfriend. Can you pick me up tomorrow for work? My car broke down. Lucas quickly replied, I'll take you for breakfast first, then drop you off at work. Sure, that sounds good. I'm going to bed now. When you get home, please sleep early. You can't keep wandering around to those terrifying places. I can't stand your wild side. After reading her text, Lucas shook his head with a smile. Clara was always worried about him, especially since he was a YouTuber known for exploring haunted houses. He had amassed over 2 million subscribers by now, documenting over 100 spooky challenges, and had no plans of stopping. That night, sleeping in satisfied joy, Lucas had no idea of the horrors that awaited him. The next morning, Lucas picked up Clara, and they went to their favorite noodle shop for breakfast. As they enjoyed their meal, Lucas couldn't resist checking the comments on his latest video. Suddenly, one comment stood out among the others with numerous likes. Looks like you're just trying to get views. If you're brave, spend a night in the haunted mansion in Timberwood. Frowning slightly, Lucas glanced at Clara, who was finishing her meal. This wasn't his first time provoking spirits, yet he could feel Clara's uneasiness grow. I'm going to Timberwood to shoot my next vlog, Lucas declared. Clara furrowed her brow but didn't say anything. She had become accustomed to Lucas's stubbornness. Are you going to take me with you? She asked, her eyes betraying her concern. Of course. Lucas chuckled, I wouldn't dream of leaving you behind. Why not double the fun? After breakfast, they took a leisurely stroll through the autumn air of Timberwood. The crisp breeze whispered through the leaves, creating a serene atmosphere. By evening, they returned home to gather their belongings for the journey, unaware that ominous shadows lurked behind them, eyes glimmering with a secret hunger. As darkness enveloped the sky, Lucas drove towards Timberwood, where an ancient mansion stood in the depths of the forest. A chilling and foreboding silence blanketed the premises as Clara clutched Lucas's hand tightly, overwhelmed by an eerie sensation, feeling watched by unseen eyes. Upon entering, Lucas began filming, proclaiming to the camera, "Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're exploring this haunted mansion in Timberwood." The flickering beams from their flashlights struggled against the oppressive darkness, revealing dilapidated rooms with faded portraits staring blankly at them. Clara felt an increasing sense of dread, especially when Lucas approached what he believed was a hidden door beyond which lay a mystery. Adorning the door was an old talisman, a chilling presence hovering around it. Clara gasped, preventing Lucas from touching it. "Don't touch that," she cautioned, her voice a trembling whisper. But Lucas dismissed her concern, boldly tearing the talisman off the door. As he swung it open, a cold wave washed over them. The air grew heavier in the room, and inside, they discovered an array of mirrors reflecting distorted images of themselves, as though those reflections were mocking and warning them simultaneously. "Tonight, we'll stay here," Lucas decided, confidence radiating from him. "These mirrors will help illuminate the room." Clara felt uneasy, but her love for Lucas silenced her doubts as they began to set up for the night. The atmosphere quickly shifted as night deepened. The faint light from their flashlight waned, thickening the shadows in each corner of the room. Unsettling sounds reverberated through the air, whispers, creaks, and distant screams that seemed to echo from the very walls of the mansion. Knock, knock, knock. Lucas jolted awake in the middle of the night, the noises stirring him from sleep. He strained to listen, but nothing else followed. Clara lay poised beside him, sound asleep. After convincing himself it was nothing, the sound suddenly returned. Knock, knock, knock. It was unmistakable. The noise seemed to be coming from within the room. Heart racing, Lucas cautiously crept out of bed, slipping away from Clara while trying not to disturb her. As he moved toward the source of the sound, he felt a chilling breeze sweep across his neck, sending shivers down his spine. "Is anyone there?" he called out, his voice trembling. Silence enveloped him like a shroud. Just then, the light from his flashlight flickered ominously and then snuffed out entirely. Panic surged through him. What just happened, he thought, grasping for answers amid the sudden darkness. Creak. The door slowly creaked open, revealing more inky darkness behind it. His heart raced as he remembered the stories he'd been told about this mansion, the legends of souls trapped within. Something moved in the shadows just beyond the door, too fast for him to comprehend, a figure that seemed to drift through the air before disappearing. Knowing he had to go out and see, Lucas stepped cautiously into the hallway, gripping his phone tightly for light. The shadows danced around him, distorting inside his mind, prolonging the fear creeping into his heart. He navigated the hallway, the weight of those threatening shadows suffocating him. Suddenly, a window swung open with a shriek, sending a gust of wind swirling behind him. Cloaked in overwhelming dread, Lucas pressed on until he reached the first floor, where the shadows conspired. His heart nearly leapt from his chest when he heard a soft yet desperate whimper. "Help! Help me! Clara!" Lucas shouted desperately, the warmth of her name igniting his resolve as he dashed back toward the room they had shared. As he burst through the door, a sight that froze him in place awaited. Clara stood transfixed before the largest mirror in the room, her reflection distorted, calling out to him with her eyes pleading. "Help me," she whispered, her voice echoed from the mirror. Drawing closer, Lucas felt an unnatural force pulling him toward it. The very air vibrated with the cries of lamenting souls filling his ears, threatening to tear him apart. "Let her go," he shouted defiantly, as the haunting figure of a vengeful spirit began to materialize before him, the embodiment of sorrow and anguish edging ever closer. Lucas had to do something. Time was running out. He dauntlessly reached for Clara's hand, but as he made contact, the mirror rippled violently, plunging him into a nightmarish vortex where past horrors unveiled. Each fragmented memory of those once joyful filled the abyss, hundreds of voices clamoring for salvation. Lucas pushed against the darkness, refusing to give in, driven by love for Clara and determination to remain free. He fought through the storm of despair, grasping at reality like a lifeline. However, the mansion refused to release its grasp, and the tortured spirits whispered dark secrets, threatening to engulf him whole. Would Lucas rescue Clara from the clutches of this haunted nightmare before they both succumbed to the everlasting grip of despair? Would they emerge unscathed from Timberwood, or would the secrets of the mansion bind them eternally in a web of horror? All was silent apart from their racing hearts, both entwined in a battle between the living and the lost. And the price of their curiosity was slowly revealing itself. The Dark Nightmare. In a desolate town called Swamp Hollow, in the year 2000. Once upon a time, there were two lovers, Jax and Luna, who decided to visit a large, ancient manor that had been abandoned for years. Rumor had it that many mysterious deaths had occurred there, along with strange happenings, but Jax dismissed these tales as mere fantasies of the weak-hearted. One dark night, as the moon silently watched over the crumbling walls, Jax brimmed with confidence while Luna felt a twinge of unease. The moment they entered the manor, an ominous atmosphere enveloped them, as if shadowy figures lurked in every corner, waiting. As they stepped inside, the front door suddenly slammed shut behind them with a deafening bang, like a warning. "It's just the wind," Jax said, trying to shake off the discomfort they both felt. They ventured down a long hallway, where dusty old portraits seemed to watch their every move. Suddenly, Luna heard a chilling scream coming from a nearby room. "Jax. I don't feel right," she said, her voice trembling. Without a moment's hesitation, Jax sprinted toward the sound. As he reached the door, he found it tightly shut. "Luna. Where are you?" he shouted, panic rising within him. No reply came. Overwhelmed with fear, he kicked the door hard, and after two fierce strikes, it swung open. But to his horror, the room was empty. "Luna," he cried, his voice echoing in the unsettling silence. A faint sound came from downstairs, "Jax." Down here, it was Luna's voice, yet it sounded like a whisper from the void. Jax raced down the staircase, his heart pounding, the dim light from his phone flickering anxiously. As he reached the lower level, a pair of eyes glimmered in the shadows, vanishing the moment he tried to move closer. Goosebumps prickled his skin, and he swallowed hard, unsure of what to do. "Who's there?" he stammered, his voice shaking. Suddenly, the eyes appeared again. This time, a black cat darted past him, completely ignoring his presence. He pondered for a moment and decided to follow the creature. Down on the first floor, the cat halted in front of a door. Jax didn't remember seeing that door. He and Luna had explored every room together. But he noticed something peculiar, a talisman plastered on the doorframe. "Meow." The cat howled, scratching at the door. There was a sound from inside, a flow of water. Without thinking, Jax ripped the talisman off and pushed the door open. The scene that lay before him froze him in shock. For inside was the same room from the third floor, brightly lit by the weak light bulb, but now it contained a large bathtub filled to the brim with water. However, the water was not clear. It was a red, viscous liquid that spilled onto the floor. It was blood flowing from a corpse lying motionless in the tub. Jax's hands trembled as he approached the horrifying sight. No. He recognized her. It was Luna. She lay there, a gruesome sight, her body sprawled and lifeless, her eyes wide open as if staring into nothingness. Her mouth had been viciously slashed open, and her tongue hung limply. Jax was consumed by despair when suddenly, a laughter echoed from the shadows of the room. Panicked and enraged, Jax whipped around, searching for the source of the sound. "Who are you?" he yelled. Unexpectedly, he saw his own reflection in the mirror, twisting and contorting. The face in the mirror looked back at him with a twisted grin, freezing him to the core. The reflection raised its hand and began to twist its neck, causing Jax to feel an agony in his own. "Jax. Jax, what's wrong?" Jax jolted awake, his body drenched in sweat. He blinked, realizing Luna was right in front of him. He hugged her tightly, leaving her perplexed. "Jax, you're crushing me. Let go." After loosening his grip, he said, "I just had the worst nightmare." "Really? What happened?" she asked. It's nothing. Is it morning already?" "It's 8 a.m., sleepyhead. We should go, we still have to head to Sapa." Relieved to find it was just a dream, Jax exhaled deeply. The nightmare felt so real that he struggled to differentiate between dream and reality. They quickly packed their belongings and left the ghastly mansion. While Luna was cheerful and excited for their trip, Jax felt a shadow of dread lurking within him. When she inquired, he merely claimed to be feeling weary. The taxi driver raised an eyebrow when he picked them up, surprised they spent the night in such a notorious place. "Wow, you two actually stayed there. Did you see anything strange?" he probed. Jax remained silent while Luna answered, "Nothing at all. I slept very well. It's all just rumors, really." The driver looked skeptical but eventually shrugged it off. When Jax turned to glance back at the manor, he swore he saw a translucent shadow floating in the upper window. Something inside him felt a chill, as if someone, or something, was watching. But the taxi drove off, carrying them safely away from the terrifying house where he had felt genuine fear for the first time. As promised, Jax and Luna spent a day enjoying famous sights in Sapa, but Jax couldn't shake off the haunting images from his mind. "Maybe I'm just overthinking," he rationalized. They returned to Hanoi a few days later. While Luna seamlessly resumed her daily life, Jax found himself unable to rid himself of the chilling nightmare. He spent hours researching the old manor online, sifting through urban legends that left him uncertain about what was real and what wasn't. One article recounted how the splendid estate belonged to a wealthy family, once teeming with life. But tragedy struck when the only son fell for an impoverished girl, leading to her grisly demise. According to rumors, the distraught son lost his mind and attacked his family. A shaman was called in, who locked him in a room full of mirrors. The next day, his dead figure was found preserved as if he had withered into a hollow corpse. Rumors of subsequent family deaths spread rapidly, leaving the estate abandoned. Among the articles was a disturbing post by a vlogger known for exploring the paranormal, echoing Jax's own experiences. He mentioned encountering something unnerving. "I found a room on the 3rd floor filled with mirrors. Despite years of dust, there wasn't a hint of dirt on those mirrors. I discovered handprints that wouldn't fade away, as though someone from the other side was pressing against it. The moment I examined them, I heard a loud knock that made me jump." Jax's heart raced at those words, the story mirroring his own terrors. Was this all truly just a dream? He tossed his phone aside, but unease settled into his bones, lulling him into a restless sleep. The nightmare soon returned. He found himself standing before the door of a luxurious bathroom. Dim lights flickered from within like a small flame in a cave of shadows. As he entered, the bathroom appeared lavishly furnished, with a massive bathtub at the end. Luna lay within, eyes closed and an expression of haunting sadness on her face. Beside her was a bouquet of flowers delicately placed on the edge of the washcloth. Jax attempted to reach out and speak, but she didn't respond. As he touched her, a wave of ice-cold terror enveloped him. Cough, cough. Suddenly, Luna's eyes snapped open, locking with his. A horror grin stretched across her face, a ghastly, wild grin. Knock, knock, knock. While he was frozen in fear, the familiar sound echoed once again. The water in the tub surged, spilling over, turning a deep, sinister red, filling the room with a nauseating stench. Luna. What are you doing? Let go of me, he screamed as she lunged toward him, her grip tightening, dragging him into the blood-filled tub. Finally, Jax managed to break free and stumbled toward the door. But when he opened it, he was violently tossed into another room, an old, dusty chamber of mirrors within the accursed house. Knock, 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 the sound persisted as if echoing from the depths of the mirrors. Something unseen seized him from behind, dragging him back into the bathroom, causing him to scream in terror. He awoke, gasping for breath, drenched in sweat and overwhelmed by a sense of dread. Days passed, and it had been a week since returning from Swamp Hollow. Jax had become a shadow of himself, and Luna noticed his deteriorating state. You should see a doctor, you've lost so much weight. Are you hiding something from me? She pressed, concerned. Jax laughed off her worries. I'm fine, just suffering from sleepless nights, that's all. Then what is this fatigue? Or are you seeing someone else? At her joke, Jax chuckled, but he knew he couldn't tell her about the nightmares, the ghastly images of Luna that haunted him night after night. As they sipped coffee together, she suddenly mentioned, I've had the strangest dreams lately. Cough, Jax nearly choked on his drink. What have you been dreaming about? Luna furrowed her brow in confusion but continued, they're all about our trip to Swamp Hollow. I dream we're living in that mansion, and it's so beautiful. The scenery is like a fairy tale. It's enchanting. Jax recoiled in terror at her words. Had she been touched by the sinister presence that tormented him? He changed the subject, saying, let's just build an even bigger mansion together someday. How's your project going? Why the sudden interest? My work is fine, but why haven't you posted any videos about our trip? Jax felt unease creep over him. He hadn't dared to review any footage from that day, everything about it left him too unsettled. I'm still editing, I'll post it soon. Let's just head home, I'll pick you up for some barbecue tonight. Sure, she agreed brightly. Once they reached her large, well-furnished home, shared with her friend Mai, Luna invited him in for a bit, but Jax declined, instead saying he needed to freshen up before dinner. Alone in his small room, Jax lay back on the bed, hand propping his forehead as he thought about Luna's earlier dreams. Why is she dreaming of that place? Could it really be just coincidence? After contemplating for a long while, he finally decided to open the video clips of their time in Swamp Hollow out of sheer curiosity. Welcome back to my vlog. The footage started with scenes of the manor, each room filled with dust and covered in cobwebs, a striking depiction of time's passage, a journey that had turned dark. Eventually, as they reached the fateful third floor, Jax felt his heart race, memories of dread rushing back to him. He watched the footage of himself and Luna lovingly exploring the rooms, the laughter seemingly echoing through the screens. The images were alive, nothing seemed amiss. But at the end of the video, something made Jax's heart drop. When he detached the camera from the stand, its lens had unintentionally captured a moment, Luna turning her head and smiling eerily into the camera, even while she was ostensibly talking to Jax. What the hell? He whispered, a chill flushing through him as he replayed the clip. His heart thundered in alarm. Frantically, He dialed Luna's number, but there was no answer. Panic set in, and after a moment's realization of dread, he grabbed Mai's number, willing to find out what was wrong. "Hello, is this Jax?" Mai's voice questioned. "Yes, it's me. Is Luna with you?" "I can't reach her. She just took a shower." "What's going on? You're acting frantic. Please, just ask her to call me." "Alright, just hold tight." "Luna. Luna," he shouted into the phone, but got no response. Mai's voice turned urgent. "That's strange, I can still hear water running, but she's not answering. Maybe it's taking longer than usual." His heart raced. He recalled the nightmare back in the manor, picturing Luna in the bathtub. "Mai, please check if everything's alright. Now." Hearing the urgency in his voice made Mai anxious too. She rushed to grab the spare key and quickly dashed to the bathroom. "Ah!" A chilling scream erupted through the phone before it went dead. Mai, what's happening?" Jax felt the imminent dread creep over him as he rushed over to Luna's place, uncertain of what he might find, the air thick with despair. Upon arriving, he found Mai pale and shaken, struggling to catch her breath as she pointed toward the bathroom door. It's awful." Without waiting for her to finish, he surged through the door and stumbled into the room. The scene before him felt like an unending nightmare. There was blood everywhere, splattered across the floor tiles. The bathtub was empty, and the horror of what had occurred washed over him. From the corner of the bathroom, Luna stood, blood-soaked and lifeless, her eyes wide open in terror. No, Jax felt his chest tighten. He turned to run, but the door slammed shut before he could escape. The shadows flickered, and ominous laughter filled the room. "Welcome to the family, Jax," echoed the voice of twisted mirth. Eventually, Jax collided with the mirror, where his own reflection smiled back at him, eyes devoid of warmth. "You can't escape. You belong to us now." Consumed by an overwhelming dread, Jax forced himself to confront the horror in the reflection. He screamed, tearing away as he plunged through the other side. In an unexpected twist, he awoke once more, realizing none of it had truly happened. Only Luna's face stared back at him, alive and real. "Wake up," she implored. For a moment, he didn't want to admit it was a dream, unsure how much more he could take. The cycle of pain was relentless. The next day, he resolved to not let the nightmares take control anymore. They would fight the darkness together, break the cycle, and break free from the haunting chains of the past. With a quiver of resolve, Jax and Luna ventured forth, ready to reclaim their lives, battling not just for survival, but for the future still untold. The Day of Reckoning. In a small town called Gloom Hollow, where chilling tales are whispered like the cold of winter, there stood an old abandoned house deep within the woods. This house was notorious for its mysterious mirror, said to hold the souls of countless unfortunate victims. In the year 2000, during the autumn celebration of Gloom Hollow's independence, the story of this mirror was once again revived. Nora, a beautiful girl with pale skin, found herself gazing into the mirror of her adoptive parents' bathroom. She tilted her head, admiring her flawless reflection. However, as she stepped out of the bathtub, a bizarre laughter echoed from the mirror. Nora turned back, her heart racing, as she saw her own image still standing there, grinning in a grotesque manner. "You can't escape," a raspy voice emanated from the reflection, as its hands gripped its lips, blood oozing from the corners. Nora screamed and tried to flee, but her legs felt heavy under an invisible weight. She fell to the floor, helplessly watching as her mirrored self continued to stare ominously, its smile widening as if craving something sinister. Zooming in on the scene, the mirror began to shift, revealing a vision of a blood-red swamp, where whispers floated through the stillness, carrying the silent screams of trapped souls. Blood began to seep from the center of the bathtub, mingling with the warm water, transforming it into a pool of crimson. Nora's image slowly faded, leaving only the haunting laughter echoing through the air. Mom, Nora's boyfriend, rushed to the house after receiving a frantic message from her. "Babe, I'm on my way." His heart raced with concern as he reached the scene, where the windows no longer showed transparency, but stood as a gateway to hell. Upon entering the bathroom, Mom's eyes widened in disbelief at the sight of Nora's lifeless body submerged in the tub. His face drained of color, and he embraced her, sobbing uncontrollably, but the only witness to his despair was silence, broken only by the echo of tormented cries from the walls of the house. With no evidence to latch onto, the police investigated, but the case remained unsolved. The gruesome death sent shockwaves throughout Gloom Hollow, stirring dark rumors about the mirror now whispered in fearful tones. Mom sank into self-destructive behavior, drowning his sorrow in alcohol. He could not forget the pain of losing Nora. Each night turned into a battle against nightmares that seemed to stretch on endlessly, where he saw the haunting image of Nora, bloodied and reaching out from the mirror. A week passed, memories of Nora only deepened his hurt. Night after night, he found himself trapped in a subconscious loop, plagued by visions of her, pale, often with her eyes rolled back, beckoning him to join her in an abyss. Among the terror, he began to hear an ominous voice. "This isn't over, Mom. One day, you will confront the mirror and face the truth." One chilly morning, Mom encountered a mysterious monk named Kai. Sensing a heavy darkness enveloping Mom, Kai spoke gravely, "You are haunted, and the mirror holds something that must be dealt with." Neither a believer in the supernatural nor an adherent of fate, Mom felt compelled by the depth of his grief. "I don't want to forget her," he cried, his eyes welling with tears. This initiated a journey back to the home where the tragic events unfolded. They faced the trapped souls lurking in shadows, where whispers of Nora's laughter reverberated through the stillness. In the dim bathroom, the mirror awaited. Kai meticulously drew a protective circle and began reciting incantations in ancient Sanskrit. Flames ignited, and dark shapes lurked around them. Mom caught sight of Nora's spirit within the mirror, and to his astonishment, she reached out once more. "Help me, help him." Just like before, he felt an overwhelming force pulling him toward the reflective surface. "Don't!" Kai shouted, but it was too late. Mom had stepped too close to the mirror, inhaling its frigid breath, plunging him into a world of shadows. Inside the mirror, Mom became engulfed in a void. Instead of finding Nora, he was met with a torrent of nightmarish memories, a twisted recollection of their love and the terror of their experiences. The frightening intensity disoriented him, but despite the suffocating darkness, he held on to hope. He searched for Nora, only to discover a looming shadow that began to strip her of her innocence, morphing her into a ghastly figure with cold, soulless eyes. He recoiled in horror, paralyzed by fear of losing her forever. "I need your blood, Mom," a sinister whisper echoed through the shadows. In a desperate moment, Mom became aware of Kai's presence just beyond the mirror. He had discovered the depth of the mirrored world, realizing it was infested with tormented spirits. Kai focused all his energy into a chant, but the darkness remained powerful, twisting and clawing for dominance. Finally, Mom understood he had to confront the worst nightmare, his own guilt. He infused his anguish with courage, refusing to let darkness extinguish Nora's spirit. He took a brave leap towards the grotesque vision, fully devoted to saving her. "Let us fight together," he yelled, united in love. The impact between Mom's resolve and the reflected mirror shaped a cataclysmic explosion. When they interconnected, a brilliant light engulfed the space. In the aftermath, silence fell like a veil, and the mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces, freeing the encaged souls. Mom stirred awake, sunbeams breaking through remnants of the mirror. Next to him sat Kai. "You have broken the curse." Tears of joy streamed down Mom's face as he recalled Nora. "Is she free?" he asked, voice trembling. "And so are you," Kai replied. "But remember, some scars remain as echoes of our past." Gloom Hollow returned to a calm state, yet within Mom, the ache of loss lingered. He promised Nora's spirit he would live meaningfully and not let the pain chain him to despair. Homebound, he surveyed the familiarity of his surroundings, the old house now devoid of that cursed mirror. The horror had faded into a lesson learned. The tale of the mirror in Gloom Hollow lingered not just as a myth but as a testament of love, sacrifice, and the resilience of the human spirit. Even in darkness, light finds a way to guide the brave hearts through the trials of life. They would continue to live, but the past would never be forgotten, for the spirits of those lost would forever reside within the smiles of the living. The Ghosts of Hollow Creek. In the eerie town of Hollow Creek, where dense fog clung to the winding paths like a shroud, an unsettling stillness filled the air. The townsfolk whispered stories of the restless spirits that roamed the ground, their lamentations echoing through the night. But none were more notorious than old Gideon, a gnarled figure often seen lurking near the old potato fields, his eyes sunken like two black holes, reflecting nothing but despair. Old Gideon found sanctuary in a shadowy thicket, staring out at the fields grown wild and unkempt. Nearby, a ruddy bull grazed uneasily, its deep-set eyes betraying a sense of foreboding. The ancient man returned its gaze, ignoring the blood-sucking insects that swarmed around him, drawn by the scent of damp earth and decay. Time seemed to stretch as he watched the bull, occasionally glancing around, sensing the weight of something unseen lurking in the thickening atmosphere of the shadows surrounding him. Hollow Creek was draped in an oppressive energy that day. The sky morphed into a bruised purple, heralding an imminent downpour, as jagged streaks of lightning illuminated the treetops like jagged teeth in the dark. Old Gideon shifted uneasily, his instincts telling him to steal the bull and vanish before the town could catch wind of his deeds. He thought of the rain. If only it would pour, washing away any traces of his treachery. As if summoned by his thoughts, rain began to pound the earth, a drumming crescendo mere moments before he lunged toward the bull with a frayed rope, yanking it from its complacency. Initially resistant, the bull finally yielded as the downpour intensified, the weight of its belly full of lush grass too great to resist. "Let's go to your new home, old friend," he muttered, a cruel glint flashing in his eyes as he pulled ambitiously at the rope, envisioning the isolation of a desolate shed by the stream, far from prying eyes. The rain lashed against the ground, turning the village paths into muddy rivulets. Chickens flailed in the downpour, their frantic clucks mingling with the musky scent of wet earth and livestock. Flames flickered in the old stone hearth of his dilapidated hut, casting demonic shadows that danced ominously on the walls. Seated by the flickering fire, Gideon's eyes glowed with the intensity of a predator. His wife, a weary woman, busily prepared food that night, her back turned towards him as she grumbled softly. She could sense the unease creeping around her but dared not confront it. There was a palpable tension in the air, and she knew well of her husband's questionable habits, both theft and dark, twisted dreams. With the bull now tethered behind their house, she cast furtive glances at Gideon, her heart pounding. "What have you brought home this time?" she unwittingly murmured towards the enigmatic man whose heart seemed to wither more with each passing day. There were tales of livestock disappearing, of shadows flickering just behind the trees at twilight. And she knew of his thieving ways. How could she not? Each treasure he brought home was accompanied by a growing sense of dread. As the storm brewed outside, rattling the shuttered windows, whispers from the vents began to rise, a mournful cacophony of ancient voices, tantalizing yet chilling. Gideon's gaze remained transfixed on the fire, but deep within his mind, visions swirled. He saw the spirits of the land, torrid souls he had wronged in his youth, twisting and beckoning him into their inferno. They wanted vengeance. They craved retribution for the shadows of his past unheeded. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated through the house, sending Gideon from his stupor. He stood sharply, the fire's glow casting long, twisted shadows across the room. The bull bellowed, an anguished cry that sent a shiver down his spine. Outside, the winds howled, now nothing more than a wailing chorus bidding him to join the chaos. "Is something amiss, Gideon?" his wife dared to ask, backing away from the eeriness brewing in the atmosphere. Her voice trembled, caught in a web spun from unease. But Gideon's face betrayed a strange intensity as he took a breath, deepening the dampening silence. "It is time," he announced, resolve threading through his veins. He ventured outside, the torrential rain a veil of obscurity, masking the world in oppressive confusion. Each step toward the bull's enclosure felt like teetering over the edge of fate. As he drew closer, something shifted in the air, the location around him becoming thick with the very anticipation of something ghostly stirring beneath the dark veils of night. The bull surged forward, the ropes snapping like brittle twigs, scattering what little light remained. Gideon shouted, a mix of anger and fear, yet the darkness wrapped around him like a lover, luring him near. Suddenly, a chilling gust rushed past him, carrying whispers of the lost souls of Hollow Creek, the loyal, the forsaken, the violent. Shadows swirled, and he could make out faces twisting in anguish, eyes wide with reproach. "You took too much from us," they howled, an ethereal sound that drove daggers into Gideon's soul. They clawed closer, fingers reaching out, phantoms of those he had wronged, a farmer lamenting over stolen livestock, a child yearning for a lost pet, a widow mourning her dear husband. They united in their sorrow and rage and, with a snap of their fingers, summoned dark, encroaching shadows to envelop him. The downpour morphed into a torrent of shadows, each raindrop a memory of guilt that splattered against his skin. Old Gideon screamed, but no sound emerged. The very essence of Hollow Creek tightened around him. In a swirl of confusion and fear, he collapsed, the dark figures circling him as the skies opened wider, unleashing their greatest wrath. And within his shack, the hearth flickered one final time before plunging into darkness, the shadows of the past ushering in a chilling silence over Hollow Creek, forever haunted by the ghostly remnants of sorrow and unspeakable deeds, ceaselessly searching for a way to reclaim what had been taken. As dawn heralded a new day, the sun broke through the clouds, yet, the land would never forget. Legends would rise about the haunted figures that roamed the potato fields, warning of the price of greed and the ghosts forever murmuring beneath the surface. Hollow Creek remained a town shrouded in mysteries, living on the edge of nightmares, where the living should never forget the shadows lurking beneath every misplaced step. The Ghost of Haunted Town. In 1985, in the secluded village known as Duskwood Vale, often shrouded in shadows from withered branches and dense fog, there lived a 16-year-old boy named Matthew. One evening, as everyone began to prepare their evening meals, a chilling gust of wind swept through, making the atmosphere even more mysterious. Suddenly, a frail and trembling figure appeared outside Matthew's house. It was an old woman, her face obscured by a tattered scarf, leaving only her sunken eyes visible, as dark as deep wells. She leaned on a cane, her steps heavy as she approached. "Please, could I have a bowl of rice?" the old woman whispered. "I haven't eaten for days." Matthew's family, known for their kind-heartedness and generosity, did not turn her away. Matthew's mother hurriedly dished out a steaming bowl of rice along with a few pieces of fish and some vegetables, handing it to the old woman. "Please, sit down and eat your fill. If you need more, just let me know." The old woman accepted the bowl with a gaze filled with gratitude, yet there was an air of mystery surrounding her. In the blink of an eye, the bowl of rice was empty. The whole family was taken aback. They had never seen anyone eat so quickly before. Seeing your kind family, the old woman raised her head, revealing a peculiar smile. "I wish to offer you a warning. What is to come for you will be unimaginable." Matthew's mother trembled. "Please, tell us more. We are listening." "The land your family lives on has harbored a dark energy for hundreds of years. This was once a burial ground for fallen warriors. Your ancestors, upon arriving here, betrayed the spirits by sealing them away. For years, they have been trapped, starved and suffering in the dark. Now, the sealing spells are weakening. They will return for vengeance. If you do not leave soon, calamity will surely befall you." The old woman's haunting voice plunged Matthew's family into chaos and worry. Matthew's father, angered, shouted, "What nonsense are you babbling, old woman? Our family has never done anything wrong. Do not threaten us with your ghostly tales." The old woman bowed her head, murmuring, "What a pity, what a pity." She then departed, leaving behind a heavy atmosphere. Matthew's mother could not shake off the worry, whereas Matthew's father disbelieved her ominous words. Years passed, and Matthew's family gradually forgot the warning from the old woman. But one full moon night, amid the stillness, a powerful storm suddenly descended upon them. The thunder roared like calls from hell, shaking the earth. Their house was heavily damaged, and chaos reigned around them. When dawn broke, Matthew awoke in horror to discover that the ground around their house had collapsed, revealing ancient graves that lay bare beneath the sunlight. Unable to bear it, Matthew called for his wife, Lily, to come closer. "We are living above the souls of the dead? Everything she said is coming true." Lily, her face pale as a sheet of paper, trembled. "If that's the case, we must leave immediately." The entire family made the decision to abandon Duskwood Vale, unaware that the vengeful spirits were following them. Matthew's family moved to a new village, but tranquility did not last long. The townsfolk whispered about strange occurrences, claiming that a ghostly figure of a girl dressed in white often appeared at midnight, standing in the fields, brushing her long hair and weeping mournfully. Before long, things escalated. Matthew and Lily were haunted by nightmares, whispers of comfort echoed through the night, and familiar laughter kept them from sleeping. In the following nights, they witnessed bizarre happenings. Objects moved on their own, lights flickered without reason. "We have to do something," Lily sobbed. "I feel that something is terribly wrong." After several sleepless nights, Matthew resolved to seek help from someone with the power to assist them. They met with Madame Mary, a renowned shaman in the area. Upon hearing their tale, Madame Mary shook her head in dismay. "These spirits are trapped, and they will not forgive your family. If you enter the spirit realm again, you will surely face their fierce wrath." Matthew and Lily decided to return to Duskwood Vale to confront what had transpired. Upon their return, the land they once inhabited lay desolate, barren, as if life had never graced it. A chilling feeling engulfed them. Suddenly, the atmosphere grew heavier, and eerie shadows loomed larger, growing numerous and clamorous, pointing menacingly at Matthew and Lily. "We have waited for you to return," a voice thundered in the wind. "We will not forgive the crimes of your ancestors. Now, you must pay the price." The spirits crossed the boundary between the living world and began to assault them. Matthew and Lily screamed in terror, but all they could do was flee. As they raced away from their ancestral home, Matthew and Lily encountered many different ghosts. Each spirit had its own tragic story, reflecting their sorrowful existences. The grotesque imagery and overwhelming presence of the spirits rendered them both helpless. In the end, they found the old woman from before, still alive, staring intently at them. The flickering light revealed that there was no escape. "The only way is to return to their sacred site and beg for forgiveness," the old woman whispered. Matthew knelt, choking back tears as he pleaded with the spirits for mercy. After what seemed like an eternity, the air fell silent. The spirits around them began to dissipate, granting them the peace they so desperately sought. Matthew and Lily's lives gradually returned to normal, but they would forever carry the burdens of fear and the price they had paid. The past could never be erased. And in Duskwood Vale, the cold wind still rustled through the tree branches, the old scarf still shrouding the memories of the vengeful spirits who waited and watched the living, ensuring that their flames of wrath would never be extinguished. Ghosts of River Hollow. In the ghostly quiet of River Hollow, where the fog hung low and the moon hung like a silver coin, there lived a fisherman named Leonard. The townsfolk knew Leonard as a solitary man, whose only companions were the waters of the river and the whispers of the night. His family had fished these dark depths for generations, their humble boat the only home they ever truly knew. One brisk morning, as the sun began to rise and the ghosts of the night retreated, Leonard woke early to prepare a brew of tea. The mist curled around him like a cloak, and as he sat with his pipe, the air was suddenly pierced by a rhythmic splashing from the river. Curiosity tugged at him like a child at their mother's skirt. What on earth could be making that noise? He wondered aloud. Rising from his seat, Leonard padded softly over to the edge of his boat, squinting into the gray waters. Something was thrashing just below the surface, bobbing and weaving, only to vanish beneath the eerie waves time and again. Whatever it was, it seemed unconcerned about the chill that enveloped the air that morning. With sudden determination, Leonard fetched a handful of stones and hurled them toward the splashing. "Get back!" he shouted. The stones collided with a ripple, and suddenly, a powerful splash erupted as the creature dived deep, the water swirling dangerously. The sun rose, revealing the sleepy town of River Hollow, overshadowed by the silent trees and crumbling old houses. News traveled quickly, and soon his neighbor, Agnes, came by with an anxious expression knit across her brow. "Leonard, you'll never believe what I heard last night," she said, casting nervous glances toward the river. "They say there's a spirit haunting the waters, something they've never seen before." "What, like a ghost?" Leonard chuckled, but a shiver crept down his spine. Agnes continued earnestly, "I swear I heard screams echoing like a banshee's wail. It was horrific." The two laughed, dismissing the enigma as mere tales of the town. But as night fell, Leonard's thoughts drifted back to that splash, and something in him stirred, a mixture of dread and curiosity. Nightfall fell heavier than usual, draping the town in darkness. Illuminated only by the flickering flame of lanterns, a gathering took place at the riverside. The townspeople buzzed with a blend of skepticism and thrill, sharing tales of vanished fishermen, whispered rumors of souls drowned and lost. Leonard stood apart, wrestling with shadows of doubt creeping into his mind. As the tales unfolded, an elder named Magnus, with a face weathered by the years and a voice thick with foreboding, began his story about a tragic flood that had claimed many lives a year prior, a flood that spilled secrets entwined with sorrow. "Do you remember?" Magnus murmured, his eyes darkening with each word. "The livestock we found drifting in the currents? They say that some spirits can't find peace, and they rise again on nights like this." Agnes nodded, wringing her hands. "What if it's true? The spirit of a cow, the ghost of our past, forever tied to this wretched place." A tremor of unease rippled through the crowd, but they brushed it off, hiding their fear behind laughter. The flares illuminated their faces in grotesque shadows that danced uneasily against the darkness. Then came the screams. A guttural, chilling wail sliced through the night air, silencing the laughter and causing every heart to race. The water churned violently as something erupted from the depths, an enormous spectral shape, rising with an otherworldly glow that sent the crowd tumbling backward in terror. "It's the spirit," someone cried. Leonard stood frozen in horror as the apparition materialized, a monstrous, ghostly cow with hollow eyes, glowing green in the darkness, its horned visage dripping with phantom blood. The ghost of the lost livestock, doomed to swim eternally in the haunting waters of River Hollow. The lush landscape transformed into a landscape of nightmares as fear consumed the townsfolk. People screamed, scrambling back as the entity floated closer, its eyes piercing into each onlooker's soul. Leonard's breath quickened. He realized that the creature was not just a spirit of the past, it was a cursed soul crying eternally for release. As time unfurled like a hideous scroll, the spectral cow lunged forward, and panic erupted among the crowd. Agnes screamed, "It's coming for us. Scatter." In the frenzy, Leonard caught a glimpse of something glimmering half-submerged, a rusted anchor tangled in the fishing nets. He lunged towards it, desperate to confront the dreadful spirit with something tangible. Perhaps in their struggle, he could find a way to save not only himself but the entire town from the terror that had risen from the depths. Clutching the anchor, Leonard called out to the cow, "You're not lost. You can find peace." As he raised the anchor high, battling against fear, the ghostly creature halted, its sorrowful eyes fixated upon him. In that moment, a haunting silence fell, intertwining with the steady rhythm of the river. Leonard, steadied by a strength he didn't know he possessed, cried out the names of those who had perished in the flood, anchoring the spirit back to its tragic past, offering it solace and acknowledgement. Days turned to nights, and nights turned long as Leonard faced the wrath of the spirit. The town rallied, performing rituals and honoring the lost souls through offerings of flowers and lanterns that floated on the water like glowing stars. Slowly, the ethereal wails faded, and the waters became calm once more. But the townsfolk could never forget. They became bound to the spirit. Even the bravest among them felt the eerie chill in the air, a reminder of the souls that lingered. Agnes, carrying a lantern each night, spoke to the air, offering prayers and comfort to the haunted. May you find peace, dear spirits. We remember you. But some nights, when the fog thickened and the moon hung low, Leonard would hear whispers on the river. Sometimes, just before sleep would take him, he'd awaken to the sound of splashing, daring him to return to the depths where the ghosts danced, calling for him to join their eternal waltz. And thus, River Hollow stood, forever haunted yet forever alive, a town entwined with both the living and the echoes of the dead, forever waiting for the dawn to rise and shatter the haunting silence. And in that haunted legacy, the river flowed on, a testament to the mysteries of life and the undying spirit of those who remain.